Welcome back to another episode of That's Business. Today's guest, Amalia, is a clinical social worker, a certified sex therapist, and has advanced training in psychodynamic therapy. In her practice, she helps her patients deepen their self-understanding, improve their relationships, and explore the unconscious patterns influencing their lives. Amalia, you have been one I have been wanting to have on the podcast. A therapist has been like the goal for 2025. So I'm so pumped to have you here today.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
We have a lot to get into. But starting off, did you know growing up you wanted to be a therapist?
No, I did not know that's what I wanted. It's been a windy road to get here. It definitely wasn't a linear goal I set out to do.
Okay. So if you don't mind sharing, how did we get here? What's kind of like the highlights of how you ended up as a therapist?
It was really a process of like following my interests a little bit at a time, not knowing where that would end up. I think it's fair to say it started in high school when I started volunteering at Planned Parenthood in a peer education program. We were trained on health topics, sexuality topics, and the idea was like teens listen to other teens.
So true.
So we want to like charge teens with accurate scientific information that they can pass on to their peers and help teens have like a safe person to talk to and get connected to other resources. That's where it started. Of course, when I signed up for this program at like age 16, I wasn't thinking about my future career. I was just thinking like, this is interesting. I had friends involved. Like, it just sounded intriguing and I loved it. And that sort of led me to continue in the peer education space in college and undergrad, working at the Sexual Assault Center on campus, also in peer education around like sexual violence. So then I graduated and I did health coaching around smoking. It was part of like a research project. And then I actually moved to Costa Rica and spent a year working in tourism, basically, which I know sounds like a leap. But I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my career. And I was so hungry to be in a Spanish-speaking country and to work on Spanish. I just was like so drawn to working on that part of my life. I wasn't really thinking like as a 22-year-old about what this will mean for my future career. I just went with it.
You're obviously a bold decision maker. Get involved at Planned Parenthood at 16. That's amazing. I feel like I was still figuring out what this whole organs and feelings and hormones and everything were, at least my experience at 16.
Of course.
That's incredible that you did that. And I have to know, I mean, was that terrifying to go live in another country and just, how do we decide on Costa Rica? I've been there and it's gorgeous, so I see why, but how do we come up with Costa Rica?
Yeah, it was through Google. Like I was looking for ways to, like, what can I do in a Spanish-speaking country? I started thinking about being an English teacher just so that I could live in a Spanish-speaking country. Like this will be how I'll support myself.
Right.
So I found this program that they teach you to be an English teacher at a school in Costa Rica. So it was sort of happenstance. And when I was at that school doing the training to become an English teacher, the school also had like a volunteer side to it and they were hiring. So I actually never taught English. I did the certification to teach English, but the school ended up hiring me to work more in their like tourism volunteer side of things.
Wow. And how long were you in Costa Rica for?
Just a year.
Okay.
I was working really, really long hours. It was a very demanding schedule, but it was very regimented. It was like I started work at 7 a.m. every day, and coming from the college experience into something so structured was very different. But I think like working so hard and working such long hours and being so regimented with my schedule, it gave me a different perspective and it gave me some clarity. I felt like I could think more clearly being in my own, being away from home, being on such a regimented schedule. There were a lot of factors. And I started thinking about sex therapy. I started thinking, again, we're back at Google. I was like at my desk at this job, like Googling how to become a sex therapist. I was like, I've never thought of being a therapist before. I don't even know how to do it. I was like, can I even do this? Because I didn't study psychology in undergrad. So I was like, is it too late? Like, which is so funny to think back on. I'm like a 22-year-old asking, is it too late? Like, as if 22 is like so old.
Well, they say to you growing up, I mean, you go to college and it's like your 20s are the best and college is the best. And I think a lot of people, I know now looking back, I don't think college was my best years. Now I know I was clinically depressed and had all the signs there, but it's like you're fed this dream, at least in my experiences. And then you're like, I remember at 22, 23, I'm like, is this what the rest of my life is going to be like? Like, this sucks. This is terrible. So I think it's important too that it's okay to reinvent yourself, and it's better to do it in your 20s rather than, and we still have people that reinvent themselves 40s, 50s, 60s. I mean,
Totally.
We love that journey for everyone, but it is so true. And that's what very passionate about younger groups of professionals say, like, it's okay. You got this. It's all good. Give us the basic definition of what is sex therapy, because I feel like there's a lot of, I guess I would say kind of myths around it, but what in the basic definition is sex therapy and what does that look like?
Yeah. So any sex therapist, first and foremost, holds a clinical license in a mental health field. So anyone who's a certified sex therapist, first and foremost, is a mental health practitioner. That's a really important part to understand. They could be a social worker, they could be a psychiatrist, they could be a psychologist, they could be marriage and family therapist, but whatever license they have been through the education and the licensing requirements to work as a mental health clinician. So they're a therapist. I can speak for myself. When I think about my professional identity, I'm a therapist first. I'm thinking about the whole person. I also have a specialization in sexuality. So I ended up doing a master's program that was a double master's in social work and in sex therapy. But I couldn't be a sex therapist until I was independently licensed to be a clinical social worker first.
Oh,
I think that's a really important thing to understand, is that sex therapy is treating the whole person. You know, if someone's really, truly only wanting to think about sexuality, maybe what they're thinking of is more like coaching, of like something that's really focused on taking action in one specific realm. But the way that I work in sex therapy is I'm thinking about the person's developmental history, their relationships, the way that their mind is organized, how they're relating interpersonally, what's their self-image. I'm thinking about their identities. It's a lot to think about. And sexuality is just one piece that folds into thinking about the whole person.
Well, and I'd love to, I mean, a piece of your bio and what we had talked about when we were discussing if we would vibe for this podcast, and we obviously did, being a Mexican-American woman, as you said, and studying kind of like gender, race, and sexuality and how that goes into play. I think a lot of people don't realize like their specific upbringing. If you have either immigrant parents, or I was first generation college kid for my family. So there's just so many pieces of this, or just like how you grew up or your development, like you said, that comes into play. So what are some of those things you look at? I mean, obviously you can speak being Mexican-American woman on that experience, but if you work with someone that's struggling with identity or struggling from a different race than you, like how do you kind of take those experiences and offer the incredible therapy that you do?
Totally. They're so important. And what's most important to me is to be listening really, really carefully for how those experiences and those identities have shaped that person's internal world and life experiences. And it's so unique to each person. It's not like, oh, this is the experience that everyone in this group has, and let me like take this template and copy paste onto, this must be with the way that they experience their life. It's much more like, okay, we know that these groups face discrimination. We know that these groups face these specific challenges in our culture. So let me be like really, really tuned into what I'm listening for when I'm sitting with that person and ask, because I won't actually know until I ask. But the other piece that is really specific to working psychodynamically is that you're also always listening for things that the client or patient might not be fully aware of themselves. It's listening for patterns and puzzle pieces and ways that it's showing up in maybe behaviors, listening for what's not being said, but is being felt or expressed in the body or in, like I said, behaviors. It's like listening for how you can help someone make those things conscious. So like someone who's first generation in this country or first generation college might, for example, this isn't true for everyone, but might have like an unconscious guilt that they are surpassing the achievements of their parents, or that they have access to an easier life than family members. And there might be guilt of like, do I deserve this? Or how could I let myself have more than my parents have? It might not show up in like being said so explicitly, so clearly, but it might be playing out in the background of, you know, what I think like pop culture calls like self-sabotage.
Yes.
So someone might be able to tell you, oh, I'm self-sabotaging, I don't know why. And, you know, you're going to be listening for, is there unconscious guilt, for example?
That's great. What are some of the problems that you typically see, or maybe someone listening has a friend that maybe would benefit from more specific sex therapist than a unspecialized therapist, let's say, or that's not. So what are some of the like buzzwords, or what are some of the, I guess, struggles that your patients, clients typically have, or some of those issues a good friend could look out for that's listening?
Yeah, that's such a good question, because I think that when people are looking for a therapist, like they don't really know what they're looking for. And like,
Yes.
how could they? Like, I mean, it's so overwhelming. You see these like abbreviations and letters and certifications, and you're just like, I don't know what any of this means.
Help.
It's very confusing. There's not really a great way to do that. So a lot of the issues I see would fall into a few buckets. I would say there's like the bucket of relationship issues. That could be someone who is like having affairs, or who has had partners who have had affairs like multiple times or something. It could be someone going through a really difficult ending of a relationship, a really hard breakup or divorce. It could be someone who's really lonely, who is having a hard time finding relationships, romantic or platonic. Then there's the bucket of like self-image. And a lot of times that shows up as like body image, worrying about weight or appearance. And then there's the bucket of like identity, of feeling like, I don't know who I am. I'm questioning my sexuality or my gender. And all of these buckets can sort of happen at once. It could be someone only identifies with one of these things when they first enter. And then we get to know how all of this is linked with their developmental history over time.
And something I'd love to get your take on with the toxicity that is our current administration. So many people are saying, oh, everyone's questioning their identity now, and everyone's gay now. And I think this is a great topic to have during Pride Month right now. But I would love your thoughts on the fundamentals of someone that is questioning their identity, questioning their sexuality, questioning those specific things, and what you say to someone that's like, everyone's gay now. It's like, ugh. But I won't get on my soapbox because you're the expert here. So tell me your thoughts.
Oh, please get on your soapbox. I'd love to hear it. I think it's a wonderful thing if people are feeling safe enough to ask these questions and to do this kind of exploration, and to have, for some people, these kinds of questions are really terrifying, and that's okay. And for others, they're really fun and actually like joyful and playful. And we can work, of course, with anything in between. So I think it's wonderful if people are feeling safe enough, even if it is terrifying, to question, to have even been exposed to some of this language, to know, oh, there's like words for what I've been thinking or feeling, and to be able to put words to that maybe when I was a child, like, I don't know that I had ever been exposed to some of this language. And so how fantastic that kids know that there's more people who feel this way out there and they don't have to feel so alone. Of course, we know that safety is really fragile. I know that's an oxymoron to say that, but I don't mean to say everything is so safe and wonderful. I don't want to sugarcoat the reality we're living in. But at least I think that kids and young people and old people as well are at least having more exposure to language that feels really good to know that it's an option.
And back to your loving Google and Google guiding you on different paths in your life. I mean, I think that plays right into it too, of like, oh, this is who I am and I feel so seen. So it does make sense. So I thank you for your take on that and for answering that question. But as we kind of go through, are there different, what do I want to say? Not different seasons of what people can work on, but especially women or female identifying professionals. What are some of the advice you give of someone that's trying to balance the identity of like who they are professionally, who they are personally, and there's just like a huge gap and we kind of want to be that even level? What's some advice you give people without giving away everything you do in therapy?
I would say that if your inside world is not matching the actions you've taken in your life that are now showing up in maybe your career, then there's a lot to be curious about. And we don't know what that means for you, but it's important to find out if that's of interest. It's never too late to know yourself on a deeper level and to feel like the more you know yourself, the more you're going to be able to align your outside world with feeling like you're really yourself.
That's amazing. As we kind of go through this, what are you most excited for in your practice, or what are some things you're working on, or whatever you can share with us, of course, for this next year, 6 months, and everything we can look out for?
Something that's a little bit different about this field is it's not really so much about like expanding with like getting bigger. It's more about expanding my skill set and just continuing to try to get better at what I do and keep learning and just see where that takes me.
Amalia, you have been incredible. So as we wrap this up, what advice do you have for listeners?
I'm going to stick with the theme that it's just never too late. It's never too late to get to know yourself more and to find relief and joy.
That's amazing. If you want to work with Amalia and follow her on socials, check out her website, head to the show notes, and tune in again next week for another episode of That's Business.